Hey everyone, it's Christopher Swan, and welcome to this week's episode of Living Your Journey. Each week, I get the amazing opportunity to chat with people that love what they do in life. They understand their passions. Maybe it's a career path or the social impact that they're making. It's kind of like they're following their North Star, and they're putting in the work. They also know their story may change, but they understand that they're on their journey every day. My conversation this week is with actor, YouTuber, and all-around entertainer Matt Cullen. He's also co-creator of the web series Raymond and Lane, which gained notoriety from various news outlets and even the likes of Perez Hilton. In addition to acting, Matt is also a creative force with social media, using channels like Periscope, Twitter, and Snapchat to connect with his growing fan base. These kind of real-time and personal connections have even sparked an official fan group, the Matt L. Cullen family. Matt and I talk about his adventures into entertainment and following his dream of acting. We also chat about not waiting around for a big break, but instead putting your stuff out there to grow and challenge himself. This is the story of someone young in their career and passion creating a new path, because no one's going to do it for you, and that's a good reminder for many of us, no matter which phase of life we're in. One last note, Matt and I found out we're from the same hometown, and we even have a mutual friend. How amazing is that? It makes me like him even more. Okay, let's meet Matt. Matt, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we were just chatting, a little before we hit the record that we were connected through Ryan D. And he's been a friend of mine for quite a few years. And it's just, I know he's connected with you online. And he was on a highlight show that I made him publicly say it out loud who he wanted on the show, which was you. And
oh my gosh.
Which first I love that he said it. And then he said that, oh, and he's actually from your hometown. I was like, wait, what?
It was fate. It was fate.
Totally. And then here's the next best part. I think a day after he recorded that episode with me, he had contacted you and said, you're going to be on the show, blah, blah. He wrote me the very next hour and said, oh, by the way, Matt's totally going to do it. So
amazing.
So he was like this matchmaker. I just thought, just through this, Matt, I just felt like it was meant to be. We needed to talk. I wanted to hear your story and connect the dots about kind of, even our local hometown. And one more thing I just thought I would throw in there. We actually have a mutual friend, I think I realized, Tika Moon.
Oh my, you know Tika?
I went to school with Tika.
Oh my gosh, yes, I did a lot of community theater with her back in the day.
Yeah, so it really is fate. It is kind of amazing. I was like, wait, I think we're going to be best friends. I can tell already.
That's awesome. It's a small world, right?
It is a small world. That's what I thought was so powerful just about even having you on the show. Obviously, you're doing some great stuff, but I think it's just this wonderful connection that we all have that we might not even know that can also work in our favor for a career in our life.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, especially with the internet now, you can connect with so many people, and it's just so amazing.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to lead us right into some great questions also about, the online work that you're doing and pursuing acting. But before I jump into some of the semantics and details, I want to ask you kind of this obvious question I've been starting to ask folks, which is, why do you do what you do? Why acting? Why acting for you?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. It's a tough one for sure, but I just think my whole entire life I've just known I've wanted to be an actor. Since I was seriously 4 or 5 years old, acting was my dream, and I was going to move to LA or New York. I've always been so vocal about that my whole life. I just think that it's something that it's one thing in my life that really fulfills me. I always tell people when they ask me this question, I imagine if my heart was like a gas tank, when I'm creating and acting and making something, I feel like my heart is full, and when I'm not doing that, I feel like it's it's empty. And so I just know that it's been something that's been in my destiny, my whole entire life.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you kind of relate it to this, your heart feeling full, right? It's just you just know, it makes you who you are.
Definitely.
Is it the creation process, I wonder? I'm sure there's lots of it, but is it kind of that creation of bringing something to life, or is it something even bigger than that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I think my whole life I've been very into the creation process of something and seeing something from nothing and making it into something. Even when I was a kid, I would make plays with my neighborhood kids and make them all be in it, and like direct them all around. And I just loved like the idea that you can just make anything happen if you just make it happen yourself. You know what I mean? So I just feel like ever since I've been a kid, that's just been something that's so inspiring for me. Is just the whole creation process.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, that's going to lead me straight into the thing I've been really curious about as well. So I know you're in Los Angeles. You're pursuing acting. You went to school. I think it was over at Pace University in New York.
Yeah.
So it's been, obviously part of your life. I know you're doing all these things, but in the last, I don't know what, over the last 2 years, heavily, probably a little before that, you've been really creating a lot of entertainment in different vehicles online. So, I know you had, what was it, the Web Chat Boys, and
Yeah.
then it went into your show, Raymond and Lane, which has obviously been really popular and picked up by a lot of folks. And you keep doing smaller things. You now have your own channel with vlogs and such. So you're doing so many great things, and it's fun to see you kind of just, especially it feels like you're kind of on fire right now. Like especially as a creation, like you got stuff like just pouring out, which is so fun to see.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So here's my question. How did you decide to move into that space, versus like the traditional just I'm going to LA to act and do auditions? I assume you're probably doing both, but how'd you move into like, I want to be a creator and I want to do all of these things online?
Yeah, I am definitely always auditioning as well, but I just feel like when I moved to LA, I realized like how many actors are really here and how competitive it is and how hard it is to break in. How hard it is to get your first opportunity. Like that was always my struggle, was like it was just kind of seemed like a tunnel without any light at the end of the tunnel. And so and it was just, and I'm very like, I'm always been a hard worker. I've always been very like dedicated to, making steps forward in my career, and it was just driving me nuts that I felt like I was just kind of in this kind of just like waiting around for a phone call, and it was just, it was making me not happy. And so when my best friend moved to LA, he moved from New York. We met in New York. We went to college together. We live in the same apartment together. We're roommates, and we just both felt the same way. And so we just like picked up our phone. I mean, we had no money to our name, but we just picked up our phone, like our iPhones, and started making the Web Chat Boys. Which, thank you so much for watching that. That means the world.
Absolutely.
And we just like started realizing that like what we bring to the table, and what we bring to the table also as writers and creators, and like from then on it just all kind of snowballed, and we started making our series, and then it's all been just taking off from there. So I think just like really starting just creating something just opened up so many more doors.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually just interviewed an actor a week ago. The episode's not out yet. I guess by the time people hear this, it will be out. But he said, and he's been in the industry for quite a long time and has had some really good success traditionally. But we talked a little bit about this kind of like online YouTuber kind of experience. And he says, well, you got to create your own thing because, if you're always waiting around, it may not happen. And it takes a long time for things to happen in the industry. He also did say, I mean, he admittedly was like, I'm lazy though. He's like, I don't know. He goes, I love to write, I love to do all this stuff, but I just don't always want to do it. But we talked about why people do that. And it sounds like the same thing is like, you can't wait around all the time, but create the thing that you really want.
Exactly. And I mean, it is a lot of work to create my own stuff, but it's also taught me a lot, and also reminded me a lot about how hard work pays a lot into your success in your career. And I've learned a lot about, we do all of our own PR for the show. We do all of our own editing for the show. We direct our show. We both just produce our show by ourselves. Like, so it's taught me a lot, and it's opened up a lot more like lanes for me in terms of how I can break in. Instead of just being an actor, now I am a writer. Now I am a director. Now I'm an executive producer. Do you know what I mean? So it's been amazing for me in that realm.
I love that, and it's true when you have that determination, and you can also learn a lot of these things online as well when you want to learn these skills. I read about you once that it wasn't just acting that you really loved anyways, you also loved to direct. So this seemed to me when I was watching your shows that it was just a natural progression for you to like jump in there and figure out how to actually do some of that. Was that something that you started with, even the interest of wanting to know those skills?
Yes, I feel like my whole entire life I've always been just like a leader. I'm just someone who like really just takes initiative and just like moves it along, and always make things happen for myself. And I've always wanted to be a director, but directing is even harder to get into, I feel like, than acting. There's only one director per project, and there's numerous actors. It's very competitive, and everybody wants to do it. So it's been having my own web series and really being able to like learn from my trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't work in my own web series has been just mind opening, and just reminded me like how passionate I am about directing, and how like I can kind of use my web series now as leveraging myself as a director as well.
Yeah, so smart. And that's funny, Matt. I didn't realize, I just never thought of it that way, as directing's even harder. There's only one per project. I never thought, like, flipped it around, like, oh yeah, there's a lot of actors, but wow. Yeah, that's smart. Well, let's talk a little bit about your show, because you just released a brand new episode. I think, what was it, 2 days ago? A day ago?
Yeah. It was yesterday.
Okay. And the show has been on for, this is Raymond and Lane, and I think your first episodes were a couple years ago. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I know that you've had some iterations. You've also done kind of like this improv, real life version of it as well. But, this show, I wanted to bring it up too, because you really got some notoriety and some press for this in different areas. Like, I know like Fox News picked it up, and they've even written about it in the local paper in the wine country. They've, in different areas, Ireland. So I'm really curious about the show. Maybe give us a little bit of a short summary of what it's about, and then I'm going to ask you another question.
Sure. The best way to describe our show, it's a really like zany, offbeat comedy about two best friends and their daily lives in Los Angeles. So, it's kind of like inspired by me and my best friend, but obviously the characters are much more eccentric and much more dramatic than we are in real life. But it just explores like their daily lives and the kind of things that they go through and how they handle it.
Okay. Yeah. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, definitely we'll link to that in the show notes and all the information. So here's my follow-up question to that. With the notoriety for that, and for that kind of the press and things you've done, especially for the last couple of years, has that changed the way that you have now approached your career in acting, or even creating new things online?
Definitely. I feel like it's also just given me the confidence and just given me the awareness that that online is a great tool, and that a lot of people don't put their work online, but it can open so many doors. And I always say, because my director of photography on the series, his name is Ryan, he always told me it's not how many people watch your episode, but who watches your episode. And I always think about that even in my own YouTube videos, or when I Periscope. You never know who's watching, and it's just so good to put yourself out there, because if the right person's watching and the right person needs a role to be filled, or someone, and you inspire them, it can open so many doors. So I just feel like having my own series and seeing how things can happen and how things can really take off has just inspired me to like keep putting my work out there.
You so hit on something that's so powerful, and I think that people miss this. And this happens in so many things, not just this creative element, but in the things that we do. It's not the number of people that are watching; it's the right people. If you had millions and millions of people, but they're not really engaged in what you're doing, versus you had 1,000 people and they love what you do, that's so different. And that's what matters. Like you said, maybe it gets you in the door. And actually, wait, this just reminds me, didn't you just have like a tweet back and forth with Perez Hilton about this as well? Like that,
yeah.
That kind of makes me think, that's right. I saw that yesterday, that you guys were chatting a little bit about like, when are you going to be on the show? Like, that's a pure example, right? Of like, well, that's the right person watching.
I know, exactly. It's been cool because I'm kind of thankful that our series never wasn't just like a viral series that got big right away, because it really taught us the value of like longevity in our career, and believing in ourselves and continuing to make stuff. There's been times where, especially at the beginning, where even to get noticed on one blog was a huge deal. And now it's, fast forward 2 years and it's like Perez is asking to be on a web series. And it's just, it's so cool to be able to enjoy all those little steps along the way, and to really like learn from them, has been amazing.
I agree. Like, enjoy the moment. Don't think so much about that future. Like you said, like if it was a viral hit giant, you wouldn't learn on the way.
Exactly.
On the flip side of this, so you're producing all this original content, but then you also have to be on, different channels of social media, just kind of marketing, producing, sharing, being interactive. So I know you're very active on Twitter, you're using Periscope, you're YouTube. I know you Facebook. You're wherever, right? I'm curious about that. Do you feel like just producing this kind of stuff or being a creator that having to have such a marketing angle or hand in it online, do you feel like that's a requirement these days to get your word out there?
I really do. I really feel strongly about social media and connecting with people. Also, it's just a really strong, easy tool to connect with people all over the world and show them my work, especially with Raymond and Lane or my own YouTube channel. It's hard to reach people because there's just so many creators and so many videos on YouTube that if you just put a video out on YouTube and just let it sit, it's just it'll probably just sit there and no one will reach it. But it's not to say nobody will like it. It's just nobody will reach it. And so being able to have a voice and having people from all over the world that support me has just it helps get my work out there.
There's a debate. I've heard this from different, especially like the really big YouTuber stars out there, like some of the long-termers. A few of them actually have said it's interesting because they have these vlogs, right? That just kind of like the day in the life. And a lot of them do it every day, or some do it weekly. And what I found interesting about some of the conversations I've heard on the back end when they're interviewed is they are really choosy about what they share, with their audiences. And if you were to watch the vlog, it actually looks like they share everything. However, like there's one particular where I was like, oh yeah, I don't actually really share much personal stuff because it's personal, which I thought was like the best line. She's like, why would I tell you that? But what I found really interesting about that is she said she's a comedian and actress first. So when she's doing her vlog, sure, it's the inside of kind of her day, but she's like, I don't go really deep with some of that. It just started to make me think about, do you, like, for yourself, have to watch a line of what you share or how much you share as you're gaining more audience and more people? Do you worry about what you share online personally, or do you just open book totally?
It's been a learning lesson, especially lately, especially because I Periscope a lot, which is live feed, and I've just really gained a big following from that, which has been amazing, and I love them all, and I want to be an open book, but there are some things that you have to not share, and there are some things that are in my life that I don't want to share, but it's been a learning lesson, a trial and error, and seeing, like, oh, I shared a little bit too much here, and next time I won't, or that kind of thing.
Is there any advice you would give to somebody who's starting out with some of that? Because there's a lot of people that are trying to get into that market, and social is going to be a big thing for all of us because we got to market whatever industry we're in. Any kind of like the lesson that you learn out of like, oh, here's maybe something you should think about when you do it, or something like that?
Yeah. I think honestly, being honest and being yourself with your viewers is like imperative to your career. I think that people can pick up right away if you're being disingenuous and you're putting on a facade in front of your viewers. I think that's like the number one for me. Like I can get on my Periscope, or I can go on Snapchat and talk to people every day and be fully me without fully describing everything about my life. So I think like the number one thing is just being honest with your viewers and just really being yourself and not trying to be somebody else for them, because the minute I realized like that, oh, these people are watching me because they really like who Matt is, who Matt Cullen is inside, like that's who they like. It's been like they can feel that realness of me, and I feel like that's been the most successful thing about what's happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can understand that too. And you're right. You have to be authentic, and that's kind of the reality of things. I did also read something about you. I think you, I can't quote it where it's from, but you offered some advice about being your authentic self, when you're doing auditions and such. And it really resonated with me. I think I'm not an actor, but I think everything I do in life, hosting the show, working different jobs, when you're your authentic self, kind of like what you're saying when you're on Periscope, then more people will resonate and connect with that, you're giving something special to people.
I agree completely. I think it took me a long time to realize that because, in a lot of times in acting, they want you to fill a certain box of what, you look like or what kind of roles you would play. And I feel like a lot of my life or my adulthood has been spent trying to fit into those boxes. And once I realized that like I don't fit into those boxes and I'm unique and I'm my own person, I feel like that's been when really people started realizing like what talent I bring to the table and what my voice is as a creator and as a writer, as an actor and as a comedian or whatever, So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's otherwise you won't shine. They won't really see the unique you.
Exactly.
As you've been working through all these, the development of the shows and now the I would say it's not new, but it's newer with the vlog, or maybe you're doing a little bit more. Just through all these different vehicles and creations that you've come up with, is there any surprises along the way? I don't mean just the learning, because obviously we've talked about that and there's different things you learn, but anything that surprised you as you've been doing it?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that everything I do, I'm always like surprised. But at this point, I've just every time I learn something new, that I'm not a surprise anymore, because I just know that something's gonna come about that is different than before. But I think just always challenging myself and putting my work out there that maybe I wouldn't have done in the past has always proved to be beneficial. Like I've always been a dancer my whole entire life, but it was something that I never like really explored, just something that I did as a hobby. And I've started putting my dance videos out on YouTube, just like honestly because I just wanted to keep creating content, and I just did it. I didn't think anything of it. And that's been something that's been like such a thing people talk about, is my dancing. And it's just so crazy, because if I didn't ever put out my dancing video, then no one would ever know that I could have danced. And I think that's just been a learning lesson for me, is just always challenge myself to just put stuff out there, because you grow. And sometimes you can get in this routine of just, I'm only doing Raymond and Lane, or I'm only doing this. And you just start, only doing that. But when you start exploring and start challenging yourself and start putting other things out there that normally maybe you wouldn't, you'll see like what else you can do,
Yeah, that's super smart. I love that. I love that you just said, yeah, put yourself out there, because then you'll grow. And to your earlier point, you're not surprised anymore that you're going to have surprises. like that you're going to be surprised all the time. And I think, but that goes right to that point, right? Like if you put stuff out there, you'll grow, but the growth may also be the surprise. But it's going to help you, which is
Definitely.
It's awesome. Hey, so I want to ask this one question that I've heard on a podcast. I listen to, I don't know if you're familiar with the Actors Anonymous podcast.
No.
So if you haven't heard it, you should listen to it. It'll be right up your alley, I think. It's funny because I think, as I told you, I lived in Los Angeles for so many years, and I worked in the industry, and so I know so many actors and different folks in that industry. So I've always been so attracted to entertainment. Hence, I'm also doing this podcast.
Yeah.
So there's this Actors Anonymous podcast, which has been on quite a long time. It's recorded in LA from a couple actors and a producer. And they interview different actors, and it's people that like working actors, and they're just talking about the career and like what it's really like, and just on and on and on. So anyways, if you haven't heard it, definitely good plug for them. I really enjoy it. But here's something that they'll talk about sometimes when I've heard it on a few episodes, and I'm going to ask your opinion on it. They will bring on some actors that sometimes do a crossover to online creator, YouTuber, that sort of thing. And a lot of times it's more traditional Hollywood actor. So they ask this question sometimes, or it comes up about, what do we feel about YouTubers getting acting roles? Like they're crossing over and they're taking acting roles from people that are actually learning the craft acting. And there's debate back and forth, like, oh, gosh, they're sometimes agents or the studios are only taking them because they have big numbers, like followers. And a lot of the actors have been feeling about that. They're like, well, wait, but are they in the craft? So what I'm curious about is, have you heard that debate at all about kind of like how like Hollywood is changing, or online talent is taking over and going into Hollywood in a different way? Do you know about that? And do you have any kind of opinion on that? Like, does it matter, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely heard a lot of debate about that, and a lot of different opinions. I don't know. For me personally, I think it doesn't matter at all, and I think a lot of times people underestimate how hard it is to have a long career on YouTube, and how much that stands for that person's work ethic. It takes a long time to film and to edit and to do all these things that I feel like a lot of times when you watch a YouTube video, you don't really realize, like, oh, that vlog was only 8 minutes, but probably in the whole grand scheme of it, it probably took the person close to 5 to 6 hours to edit it and to upload it. And so it shows a lot about their work ethics. And also I don't know. I think putting your work online, I think that's just as justified as someone studying their craft. I personally, I've studied my craft from doing Raymond and Lane. I've really learned a lot about what works in terms of my acting, what doesn't work in terms of my acting through doing Raymond and Lane. So without that, I wouldn't be nearly as good of an actor as I am now. So I think I'm all for people that are creating content online getting roles in movies because I think they deserve it.
Yeah, I think the thing you just hit on that I heard a lot in the debates was it was about the craft. The actors that were kind of against the YouTubers, they weren't against it. It was just like, wait, if you're not really in the craft of it, you're just doing something because you want to be like internet famous, and then you're getting a role in Hollywood. Wait a minute here. They were like, just because you have followers versus, oh, you're actually an actor. It doesn't matter what medium you're in. You're doing something to focus on the craft because that's what we're about. And I was like, oh, that kind of made sense. And, versus the internet fame. So it sounds like you're kind of closer to that. Like it's really about, it doesn't matter. Just do hard work and be great at what you do.
Yeah, and a lot of these like personalities on YouTube or online, they're comedians. They're really funny, and they are actors. They just are putting. It's just a newer generation of us that are just realizing how powerful online is, and how putting your work online, and also how powerful it can be. And so I think a lot of people underestimate the talent that they have. A lot of these YouTubers are hilarious and could totally be an actor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've definitely come from the same side of that. Like I don't care where you actually do it. I think you're hilarious everywhere. Like you could be online, you could be in the movies, and look at the crossover, like I think of like the Hulus and the Netflixes and Vimeos.
Yeah.
Like that's like that weird hybrid now. Like now, even though they're owned by big companies, but it's you're starting to see this medium anywhere you want, which I think is beautiful, and it gives like access to people like you. That's why I was like, So that's why I was really curious about like what your thoughts on that, because you have really started to tap into that. But I know that you're going down the traditional route as well. So it's a fascinating as people started to grow. I think people that are just getting into it can look at folks like you and say, so, what are they doing? How can I, learn from that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like when I first started putting my work out online, I was kind of nervous about that, kind of nervous about how I would take in the serious field of acting, now that I'm putting my work out there. But I just feel like I've learned time and time again that people, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where you're acting, as long as you're putting your work out there, as long as you're making things happen for yourself, as long as you're not just sitting around, maybe taking your acting class once a week, but that's all. It's better to be constantly creating work, getting better, growing, and creating a fan base, because clearly, especially with social media now, having a fan base is really important. And so by putting my work out there, I've gotten to meet a lot of people that are, rooting for me and that are following my journey, and that will only help me.
Absolutely. So switching sides a little bit over to the Hollywood, kind of like, I know it's probably blended, so I'm not really trying to like split it totally, but now that, you've been in LA for what, like 3 years or so, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff I do off the top of my head, so that's why I'm like, I don't know, it could have been 2 years. So
No, I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm impressed.
okay. So, I know you're auditioning as well, and I also know it can be a very tough industry to be in. So what I'm curious about is, you're doing your own thing as well, and you're auditioning and you're looking for parts or whatever. What keeps you motivated in that kind of that traditional Hollywood space of auditioning? What keeps you going in that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a learning process, but I think just constantly like believing in myself has been the most beneficial aspect of me staying motivated, and just knowing that when my time comes, and when my time comes to really fully get my first big opportunity, that I'll be ready for it. I always think about that. I think it was like Oprah or someone said that like that it's like opportunity plus preparation that equals luck, and I always think about that. Like when my opportunity comes, I want to have like everything behind me so that I'm ready for that opportunity, and I always think about that, especially with my own YouTube channel, even, if I'm when I have that one big video that really launches my channel, I will have all these other videos behind it to back it up, and even with Raymond and Lane, like I think about that too, now we're getting these bigger stars on it. So if we ever get an option for a TV show, we have this whole entire series to back it up. And I'm just so thankful that like we've kept creating, even at times when we feel like, no one's watching our show, or are we funny, or you go through those like times in your life and you're like question yourself all the time, but I just think like knowing that the time will come has been like my biggest motivation. Like keep going, because the time will come, and then you'll be so happy that you didn't stop.
I love that you talked about the preparation. That is so important. I think I've heard that from maybe 2, 3 guests so far. They've said very similar things. Like, when the opportunity comes, you need to be the best at what you're doing. And if you're not preparing for that moment, then you won't be ready for the moment. So don't get lazy. Like, do it. And I love that. Like, yeah, you got to stay motivated because it's luck. There is luck in life, right? But if you're not prepared for it, good luck with that.
Definitely. I completely agree.
So, okay, you're doing all this wonderful stuff, and you're preparing, and I'm curious about because you're also younger in your career. What I'm curious about this is, do you have a vision toward what you're looking for, or what, like, I don't know if I'd call it like what success looks like for you, maybe, but whatever kind of resonates for you. But do you have something that you're aiming toward? Is it a like specific role, or you have regular work? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that's been constantly changing, especially within the last year. I don't think I have a clear set. This will be what success is for me because I feel like it's always changing and, new doors are opening. And I didn't even, me and my best friend who created Raymond and Lane, we weren't ever writers before we started Raymond and Lane. We were always just actors. And then, we started writing and that's opened. Now we're writing a screenplay. And it's been like, who asked me 2 years ago, I would have never known that I could have written a screenplay, So I just think allowing myself to kind of continually working hard and just taking the opportunities as they come that makes me happy, that I will end up where I should end up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if somebody's like just starting out, maybe they're in school, like go back a few years. They're in school. They don't really have any gigs. Maybe they're auditioning for a little bit of stuff. I'm kind of thinking about back to the experiences you maybe had in New York. What kind of advice would you give them to start?
I would say that just to not have any, I mean, for me at least, just to not have any excuses. Like, I feel like so many times I went through life like being like, oh, I can't create my own stuff because I don't have a camera, or I can't write my own stuff because I've never taken a writing class. Or there's just so many, like, you go through these mind things where there's so many, you're almost your worst enemy sometimes because you get in the way of just doing it, and at least like what I've learned, is like we started on our cell phones, and we started in our room just using the light from outside, like the natural light. And that was where we started, $0, and I just would tell myself in college or anybody starting out to just start and just know that the first thing you put out isn't going to be your best thing, but that the second thing will be better, and your third thing will be even better, and it's going to get better. It's cool watching my Raymond and Lane because you can really see like the progression of like the first episode, very, very, it's still you see our bare voice, our voices there, but how they've really progressed and refined throughout the seasons. I just think that not to judge yourself so much, and just to really like just put yourself out there and just learn through that would be my advice.
Yeah, that's so smart. I love that you just said you can look back at the shows, right? I've heard this from other creatives, and I've done this with myself. If you go back and look at some of your original stuff, you're like, oh, like,
yes.
I didn't love that, or it's almost cringeworthy. But it's okay. Like, you can't be embarrassed by it. You just like, oh, great, look at where I've come now.
Yeah,
super powerful.
It's something to be proud of too. I'm so proud of those first episodes for just trusting ourselves and putting our stuff out there, even if it maybe wasn't the best or maybe wasn't the, most high budget or the funniest line it could be, because it's cool as a viewer be able to watch that progression too. I think it really has made a lot of people, really cling to our show and kind of root for us because they see this getting better and better and bigger, and that's exciting for people.
I love that, root for us. That's so true. I think that's the beauty of also online is like we're all rooting for like that kind of like the person starting out, not the underdog, but sort of. It's this. Oh my gosh, this is amazing! Look at what they're doing, and I think people are starting to realize there is more work to the videos than we maybe thought before. Like your point earlier, right? It does take hours to edit. Yes, it does. I really want to tell everybody that. Like, actually, it's so much work to do this stuff. So this kind of advice that you were just sharing, were there pieces of advice that you received along the way, just through school or even like currently that as you're doing stuff that's really hit home for you that has left a mark that has maybe changed the way you do something?
It's been interesting because there aren't really any like books on how to be successful and through the internet, because everything is so new and this is also current. So it's been really kind of like creating our own book of me and my best friend Troy, and also like for my own self too, like with Periscope or with my own YouTube channel, just kind of like creating my own handbook of what works and what doesn't work. But I feel like I'm so lucky that there hasn't been advice before, and that I've just kind of been able to create my own lane, because it's taught me that everybody has their own lane to success, and everybody has their own how-tos to get where they're going. And there isn't an end all be all on how to, and on how to be successful. And doing my own thing and learning what's worked and what doesn't work has really like taught me that you should never compare yourself or compare your journey to someone else's journey, because honestly, like every journey is different, and what you do and how you get there is going to be completely different than anybody else's. So you just trust yourself and keep moving along and keep taking risks along the way, and you'll get there.
That's so true. I love that you said that. Everybody's journey is so different. And it's so hard not to compare ourselves. But I think that's kind of almost what we've been taught in Western culture. But
Yeah.
the more you don't, the better it is. Did you learn anything like that? Or did you have any kind of maybe advice or I've been thinking like advisory, like when you were growing up, you grew up in a smallish town, so it's
Yeah.
very different than Los Angeles. So did you have anybody around you or anybody that helped guided you in that direction to kind of like believe in yourself or follow acting or anything like that?
I mean, I was lucky that I did a lot of like community theater, so I was constantly in theater and constantly around adults that were, pursuing theater as well, at a smaller degree, but still, doing it as a hobby and still, actively acting and stuff. I don't know if I had any big motivators. I mean, my parents honestly were like my biggest supporters. They always have been, and they've always just been very like supportive of me chasing my dreams and knowing how hard it is, but not letting that be a deterrent. They've always been, they're not the kind of parents that are like, oh, well, that's a tough career, so good luck. They were always been like, you can do it, and like I think that that's been so amazing to have, is like this really strong support system that even when maybe nobody else believed in me, like I knew my parents did. And I think, I mean, honestly, even though they were not involved in theater or the arts at all, they still are such a support system for me.
I love that. Yeah, and that's so good. So glad to hear that. Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't. I think what I take out of some of that too is, for others that maybe are trying to do something, and you don't have to have somebody who's in the same industry to get you to where you want to go. It could just be support. Get support wherever you need it. If it's your family, your friends, whatever. It's just as long as there's like somebody believing in you. That's such a great help.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So, just kind of, this is one of the questions sometimes. I'm never really consistent with my questions. I've decided. I was going to say, here's one of my consistent questions. It's not true. But here's a question I do ask often, and I ask it especially of creative individuals who create things and do something on their own, is what's something you're enjoying like recently that brings some value to you or that inspires you? Like it could be a book, a Netflix show, or like what's something you're consuming right now that you're just so enthralled with that kind of helps you be inspired?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know if it's anything like someone. I don't know if it's someone else's work. I keep bringing it back to my own work, and I'm not meaning to do that. But I just feel like I'm working on a screenplay right now that we're really, really excited about. And also, I don't know. It's a tough question.
Well, I could even tell you like, and this could really be like, is there any kind of like, because I think sometimes when I ask this, people they're like, oh, I got to think about that deep thing that's really inspired me. Like right now, I'm obsessed with Stranger Things on Netflix. And so like, that has nothing to do with what I do for a living. However, it does inspire me because it's super nostalgic in 80s and it reminds me of it's like Spielbergy stuff, and so or there's like web shows that I really love, and so I can even go to that reference, Matt.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know. I don't have like a great answer for you. There's not like a show that I watch that, brings me inspiration every day. But I think honestly, like talking to my people all around the world has been for me. I know that sounds so silly and so
Oh, no, not at all. I think that's actually great.
but I just feel like they give me so much inspiration. Like it's been like a consistent every day. I talk to everybody, I try to touch base with everybody on my Periscope, and that's just something that's like it's almost holds me accountable, and that's something that I feel like has been really great for me. Is like having these people that I touch base with on a daily basis that are constantly asking me when my next video is coming out or when my next my next thing is coming out, and that's been something that's been inspiring for me because there are days where I just want to not do anything and just not like just like I don't want to be on social media, I don't want to be on Snapchat, but like having these people there that I know that are waiting to hear from me and that are waiting for the next thing has kept me really, really inspired and motivated.
Oh my gosh, actually, that's the perfect answer. And because I just love that you just said it, they hold yourself accountable, really, right?
Yes.
If you do it, like that's so true. What a great lesson out of that is it goes back to even your point. If you just put stuff out there, you'll grow. Well, you're forced to grow now because people are holding you accountable.
Yeah, but that's good. Yeah.
Right, totally. So smart. I love that. So even though you didn't mention a show, I think people are actually even a better answer. Like you're right. There's so many walks of life that you're probably connecting with around the world that it's lovely and inspiring.
It really is. It's been really, really amazing for me. Yeah.
So what's next for you? Are there more shows? Is it will you continue Raymond and Lane? What is the immediate future for you?
Yeah, we have a lot of things in the works. We definitely want to continue Raymond and Lane. We are hoping to do it, on a bigger scale. Maybe still online, but we feel like we're ready for the next step of Raymond and Lane. We've done this whole entire journey thus far with just me and my best friend doing everything, and we're excited to kind of take it up a notch and see where else we can put Raymond and Lane. So for that's kind of next is figuring out what the next step is for that. And then also we are really passionate about writing, and writing has been something that has been kind of like a break into Hollywood for me and him. And it's so funny because we both, as I said before, we both were never like writers, and so now that writing has been something that we are being sought for after. We're always writing, we're creating, we're writing numerous things right now that we're really excited for. And in terms of my own stuff, I just want to keep creating on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel has been such a good outlet for me to just keep creating even when times are slow. Like what I've learned in Hollywood is a lot of times it's that hurry up and wait business where you have to hurry up and get something done, and then it just kind of sits for a little bit as things get done. And so I've been so happy just like creating my own work and not really thinking too much about it, but just having fun, just creating and letting my mind just create and seeing what comes out. Yeah.
Well, it's so exciting, and I'm sure that everybody's going to look forward to seeing all that stuff. It's clearly a couple different channels that things will keep coming out, and I agree. The writing that probably was a surprise for you, but you're doing a lot of it, so it's really starting to show in what you're doing. I would imagine even in your vlog, you're probably like, even though it's real life, it's like the mind of a writer still. Like, what kind of thing should I share, right? Like, what adventure am I going to talk about?
Definitely.
Well, it's exciting to see. I'm sure we're all going to look forward to it. Here, the last thing I'd love to know is if people want to follow along with you, we've talked about all these different channels, but where should people start, or what channels do you want people to find you online to follow?
Yeah, let's see. I have a website that they could definitely check out. It's www.mattcullen.com. So that would be a good first place for people to go, and they can kind of it branches out to everything else. So there's a Raymond and Lane link there. There's my YouTube link there. There's all my social media platforms there. So that's kind of like my main outlet.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll link to that too, and we'll probably link to a lot of your social channels. Which one are you most active on? Do you connect with?
I think I Snapchat a lot. I have a lot of It's crazy how many people use Snapchat. That's one of my most popular social medias, and it's just so interesting because I didn't even have Snapchat, a year ago. And but I love Snapchat. I love the ability to just kind of show what you're doing in the moment and just put it out there. And that's been something I love. I Snapchat a lot. I Twitter a lot, tweet a lot. I like them all. I use them all, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, in this and Snapchat too, it's like snappers are totally like, it's a whole nother breed to me. Like if you do it, you kind of love it. And you just get so focused on it and so involved because it's so easy and you can really share these moments. So glad to hear that. We'll link to all this stuff for sure. Like in the show notes and also on our website.
Thank you.
Well, this has been super terrific. I've loved our conversation and just learning more about you and kind of what goes into like the magic of what you're creating online. It's really exciting. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for like watching all my stuff. I really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, I know we'll see more stuff. So thanks again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Now, over to you. Any thoughts or questions you'd like to share? Seriously, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me or the guest? We'll answer them and even get the guest to help us. So send us a message, use our Facebook page and email us there, or post a comment or question on the page, or tweet us at accidental.info using hashtag #livingyourjourney. You can find out more about all the guests, links to their sites and social channels, and even bonus content all at accidentalinformation.com. Now, a couple favors. Go subscribe to the show and you'll be the first to get the download before everyone else. Also, take just a couple moments and head over to the show in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a quick review. Quick, easy, and I would love it. This totally supports us and it helps me bring in interesting guests each week and keeps the show going. Also, I love to read them and see what you guys are really thinking. Thanks for joining the conversation, and remember, Living Your Journey is available every Tuesday. Until next week.